I inherited my grandmother's Victorian house 3 months ago. On the porch, an old rocking chair holds family secrets that go back generations. She always insisted it should never be moved. Now every night, the rhythmic creaking of the chair breaks the silence, and the apparitions multiply. Some family bonds are stronger than death itself.
You're entering Universe Paranormal, where the unknown comes to life.
I inherited my grandmother's house 3 months ago after she passed away. It was an old Victorian home on the outskirts of town, with wide hallways and spacious rooms that held generations of memories. The wooden rocking chair on the front porch had always been her favorite spot, where she would spend hours watching the garden while knitting. Since childhood, I remember her telling me stories about how that rocking chair had belonged to her own grandmother, and that it should never be moved from its place. At first, I paid no attention to these warnings, dismissing them as an old woman's superstitions. The first night I slept in the house after moving in, I heard the unmistakable creaking of the rocking chair moving on the porch. The rhythmic sound woke me around midnight. When I peered through the window, the chair was gently swaying, though there was no wind. For days, I tried to convince myself it was some weather effect or perhaps an animal. But each night the sound grew louder and the chair moved more intensely. A week later, I began to notice other disturbing details. My grandmother's knitting blankets, which I had stored in the attic, would appear on the rocking chair every morning, as if someone had been knitting during the night. Neighbors started commenting about seeing a figure sitting in the chair during the early hours. But whenever I looked, there was no one there. The gardener refused to continue working, claiming he had seen an old woman rocking who would vanish when he approached. The situation worsened when I tried to move the chair inside during a storm. That night, the noises were terrifying. Heavy footsteps echoed throughout the house, doors slammed violently, and objects flew off the shelves. By dawn, the chair had mysteriously returned to its place on the porch. My grandmother always said the rocking chair was a connection point between our world and the beyond, a place where family spirits could rest and watch over their loved ones. I never believed these stories until I started noticing changes in my own routine. I would find myself waking in the middle of the night, drawn by an invisible force to the porch. One particularly cold night, I clearly saw a figure sitting in the chair. It wasn't my grandmother, but a much older woman, dressed in clothing from another era. She stared at me intently, and at that moment, I realized she was my grandmother's great-grandmother, the original owner of a chair. The appearances became more frequent. Sometimes multiple figures would take turns rocking, as if maintaining a silent vigil over the house and its inhabitants. Though terrifying at first, I began to understand there was no malice in their presence. An elderly townsperson explained that some families have objects that serve as anchors for spirits, allowing them to maintain a connection with their descendants. The rocking chair was one of these sacred objects, and moving it or trying to dispose of it would be a grave offense. Now I've learned to coexist with the presences. Each night, the gentle creaking of the rocking chair reminds me that I'm not alone in this old house. Sometimes, when the weight of solitude becomes too heavy, I sit on the porch next to the chair and feel the silent company of generations of my family. The rocking chair remains the heart of the house, a reminder that some family bonds are stronger than death itself. And though many suggest selling the property, I know my duty is to keep this connection alive, to be the guardian of this portal between two worlds that my ancestors have protected for so long.